Sounds good to me.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
welcome
great.
everybody. My name is David Carroll, and I'm the Executive Director for the Greater Englewood Chamber of Commerce. Hopefully many of you were able to pick up your complimentary breakfast this morning. We want to thank Ogilvy Properties and Fifield Companies in helping us support our local businesses. And also wanted to thank Grow and Gather, Trumpo Bakery, and Duffy Roll for their willingness to really try this out. Usually when we host these thought co-ops, we have them in person and we provide a breakfast buffet and we all get together. But I know we all know that this is a different time, so we thought we'd try something out, and it seems like it worked out really well. So thank you all for that. We are so pleased to host our first Thought Co-op of the new year. For those that don't know, these are our monthly programs where we focus around ideas of economic growth, workforce development, and transportation. For example, next month, we'll be talking about tax increment financing and how that might be used to further the new proposed, or the newly created anyway, DDA, the Downtown Development Authority. If you all remember, in November, we created a new district, and so now they're looking at how we're going to finance that. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And today we are pleased to share with you a proposed multifamily development on the site of the old Sports Authority headquarters. When we talk to many of our member businesses, we often hear that Englewood has far more demand than inventory when it comes to housing, and I know that's not news to anybody on this attending this webinar. It's something that we all talk about a lot, and so we are excited to join you today for this presentation. And to start us off, we'd like to introduce, I'd like to introduce anyway, one of our members, Dustin Jones from Ogilvy Properties. Dustin?
Excellent. Thanks, David. Appreciate everyone's time today. We are the current owner of the former Sports Authority site at Hamden, Santa Fe, and I know a lot of you probably have heard that many times. But before I get started, one housekeeping item regarding questions and answers. You can add your questions via the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. At the end of the presentation, we will answer any questions that are posted by attendees. We are recording this meeting for the benefit of those that could not join us live today, and we will make it available after the meeting. So with that, you know, we bought the site. It's about a 15-acre site, used to be 2 parcels in 2017. There are 2 buildings on it, approximately, you know, about 100,000 square feet for each one of them. And we've since successfully repurposed the south building into the Earth Treks climbing gym, and we have 2 industrial tenants as well in that south building, one of which candidly relocated from Denver, which was great for Englewood. We did sell the building last year on the south parcel. We converted the north building to the CubeSmart self-storage facility, which is almost fully occupied now. Which was within, you know, what we pro-formed our timeline. We didn't need the middle 4.2 acres approximately with that repurposing of the north parcel to the CubeSmart facility, because we just don't need the parking anymore. So we did create a separate lot in 2018, and we tried to create a PUD to allow for apartments in 2018. We had unanimous planning commission support and candidly similar business support when we talked to all the businesses in Englewood. And within 1 week of the city council vote to approve it, we had some neighborhood opposition to the south come up, and they were more concerned about existing traffic issues. So the city council ended up not supporting it, and candidly, we have a very different city council today than we did back then. So here's round 2, but since then we've reopened it, or we've opened it as an RV storage site to help offset carrying costs and serve as a backup plan for the site in case we can't rezone it. But it's a multifamily site. The highest and best use by far is multifamily, and we know that. So And I think that's the best benefit to Englewood as a whole. So in August, we selected a new development partner, which is Fifield Development. And they bring a really strong alternative proposal to Englewood for multifamily on the site. And we'll let them go through that plan here in a moment. But since our first attempt at the PUD, which rezones it, we've met with various businesses, community members, and the previous opposition group in an effort to understand really what needed to change. And we've made much more concerted effort to involve ourselves in the Englewood community. We're Ogilvy Properties, all of us are local to Colorado, and we've joined the chamber. We've donated to a lot of local community efforts, including Cafe 180, Pirate Youth Sports, and we're looking forward to being a long-term member of the community. So, what's different this time around? Why do we ask everyone to support it this time? We've reduced the number of units that were proposed. We've reached out to the opponents, as I mentioned previously, to really address the city concerns. And these members were very appreciative of our outreach, and I think we will be successful in addressing some of those previous concerns. It's a better plan. It has more resident amenities than it did previously, and all the objections that were previously raised have been addressed. So I think one of the larger points too that David touched on briefly is that Englewood needs more housing to help provide more supply to a supply constrained market. Really gives more residents to retail industry that has been struggling well before the pandemic. I think is a huge benefit to Englewood. The city council seems to support the DDA and the idea of a redevelopment over time. And our site being a part of the DDA gives us a unique opportunity to kick this off as a great place to do redevelopment in an urban corridor. The council is very different than it was, and I think it understands the reality of having to balance the challenging demographics of Englewood. The changing demographics of Englewood with, at the same time, protecting the long-term interests of the long-term residents. And this project really does that by providing multifamily in an area that is not directly impacted as it would be if you built it in the middle of a neighborhood. So, what are we asking for folks today to do? I think, last time around we had a couple missteps, and one of those missteps is, kind of thinking that, we didn't need support to show up because it was clear we had a lot of support of the project last time. So I really can't overstate this enough. I mean, even if there are only 3 opponents that show up to a city council meeting, if there's no proponents or no supporters of the project, it's very difficult for a city council to support it. So we would love your support, and we'd love for you to participate in that support. So there's really 3 areas that you can support us. One is personal involvement, reaching out directly to city council members, planning commission members, et cetera, to voice your support via email, letters, phone calls, whatever the case might be. That's one. The second one would be getting the word out to fellow businesses. I think we had, like I mentioned earlier, we had almost unanimous support last time from businesses, but it wasn't that well publicized. So I think getting fellow businesses on board with it is certainly a great way to support us. And then really the last way you can do it is, and I think this is the most critical, is really giving us your contact info today. And hopefully coming back to a future planning commission meeting or city council meeting, which we'll reach out to you directly on to come voice your support in those meetings. And I think that's one of the most critical components. So with that, before I turn it over to Kevin and Joe at Fifield, I do want to remind everyone, I know David mentioned it earlier, if you haven't already, go grab some free breakfast. You can go after the meeting between 10 and 11 and support both the local businesses and get some free breakfast at the same time. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kevin.
Great. I'm Kevin Farrell at Fifield. I'm the president of Fifield Companies. And Dustin did such a good job. He stole most of my thunder here. And including, I like the move asking for support before they've even seen the project. I love that.
That's right.
The
assumptive close.
Exactly. Usually close with that. Anyway, you could flip it to the architecture, Joe. I'm the president of Fifield. We're a Chicago-based apartment development company. And over the last 10 years, we've built about 8 apartments in Chicago, where we're based, and about a dozen or more separate apartment buildings in greater Los Angeles. Those are 2 markets that are pretty tough to build in now. And so about a year ago, we made a concerted effort to move into Denver and find some sites. We love the job growth story. There's a lot of new transit opportunities in suburban Denver. And so, we're coming to Denver, full force. We'll hire permanent employees in Denver. We've hired a solely Denver-based consulting team. Obviously, we'll pick a local contractor when the time comes to. But at Fifield Companies, we focus on infill transit opportunities. So even though, we usually see that there's somewhat of a learning curve to get new residents to use a transit to go to work and to run errands, studies that we've seen, study after study shows that when you build housing near transit, people do end up using it and taking cars off the street. And that's a basic thesis. When we come into a new community, our design is focused on with 3 priorities. First, we want to design a building that fits into the local community. This is a sneak peek right here of the architecture. We haven't even shown it to the planning department. I think our submittal is mid next week. So nobody take any screenshots and share it with anybody. But, you're not going to see a bunch of pastels on our buildings. You're not going to see, a flying saucer. We build a project that fits into the local community with local materials. The second priority is we always want to enhance the pedestrian environment. And that really, by bringing active uses to the street and a lot of glass on the street and limiting curb cuts to create a more safe pedestrian environment, that's a goal. And then the third goal is, it sounds trite and simple, but it's do no harm. 6-8 years ago, we got blindsided on some of our new developments with Uber drivers, and Uber drivers double parking out on the street. And, now the big push is package delivery. We get packages all day at our projects. So we need to manage that so that you don't have a FedEx truck double parked with lights flashing and hurting traffic. So those are the 3 goals. And with those in mind, I'm going to introduce Joe Pitsor, who is we call him the partner in charge. He's our PIC on this project for finance and development. Joe offices in Chicago as well, but he's from Des Moines. And, I say that while you might have a little trepidation talking to a Chicago guy like me, you got to trust a Des Moines guy like Joe. So here's Joe Pitsor can run you through the slides with more detail on our project.
Great, thanks, Kevin. Hey everyone, I'm Joe Pitsor. I work with Kevin here at Fifield. I'm Vice President of Finance and Development. So I'm looking forward to kind of giving you guys an overview on what we've planned for this parking lot here in Englewood. So as has already been kind of covered before, this is the site from the street view today. So as you can see, it's a very large parking lot currently used for RV parking. Ideally, probably not the highest and best use for this site, especially given the new Englewood City Center redevelopment just to the north. So this is the site where we're really hoping we can bring and provide some really high quality, great housing for future Englewood residents. So to put in context the massing of, this new apartment building, this is kind of in general, how much space it's going to take up, how tall it is. As you can see, it's not completely out of scale with other buildings in the neighborhood, especially the CubeSmart, the Earth Treks. It'll be a similar square footage to it and footprint. And so it should have some pretty good visibility from Santa Fe, but otherwise it's not going to be a large hulking tower that's casting shadows on everyone in the neighborhood. The plan is we really would like for it to fit into the context of the neighborhood. So we made sure that we wanted to limit it to only 4 stories. So now that you guys have kind of seen in general how large the building is, a couple of really important big specification items are, yep, like I said, 4 stories tall. So we're envisioning a little bit over 300 units, 303 units. That's smaller than the number of units that Wood Partners originally proposed. So this project came around a little bit less than 2 years ago. We also are going to have 444 garage parking spaces. So there's going to be no expectation of us using any sort of on-street parking in the neighborhood. And the unit mix of the types of apartments that we plan on having within the building is going to be a little bit of studios, maybe 10% or so, about 50% one-bedroom apartments, you know, and then the remainder 2 and 3s, but primarily 2s with just a very small smattering of 3-bedroom apartments. So, you know, we think that just based off of our study of kind of, you know, what demand is for housing in Englewood right now, that's the mix that really best complements the market. And we want to be able to make sure that we're providing housing that the market wants and that it's going to be best tailored to Englewood. So over here is an overall site plan of the building, just to see in general how everything would lay out. So we go into this a little bit in further detail, but traffic we know is a major concern in this area. And so we wanted to make sure that we created this nice circle drive here where cars can come in, Uber drop-offs can pop in here and drop off people, any tenants going in and out of the garage, if someone's having an issue figuring out how the little arm to the garage works, they're not out blocking traffic on the street trying to figure that out. Guests can come in here, future residents can park in some of the parking spaces here. So that was a huge focus of ours, that we wanted to get people off of the street. Another big thing is we wanted to make sure that the parking garage, just given that parking garages in general aren't the prettiest of structures, or was hidden from the street. So you won't even be able to see the garage since it'll be surrounded by residential. As far as the building amenities go, we plan on having a pool, a nice fitness center over here on the street. Same with our leasing over on the street, and a nice patio to be able to enhance the pedestrian life on the street experience. And we plan on having, this nice kind of amenity courtyard over here for residents to be able to walk through and give it a nice kind of resort feel. So kind of just reiterating in a written form what I just mentioned, you know, secured garage. It's not anyone can just run into it, which will be great. And it'll be hidden from the street. We want to have our active uses like the office, the leasing office, and the fitness on the corners to give it kind of have a retail feel on the street there. The patio is something new this time around that wasn't originally proposed, and we really like that because we think that having some nice outdoor space on the corner there will really help kind of enhance a nice, good outdoor pedestrian friendly vibe on Jason there. And then also one thing that I didn't mention, if I go back over here, on this west side of the property, City of Englewood eventually would like to be able to have the rail trail come through here. And we're still working out on logistically how it would all work out, but ideally, potentially there'd be the rail trail that would be running along this kind of white area. So that'll be really great because it'll be able to connect the building and over to the RTD station that's just over in Englewood City Center. So again, just kind of reiterating, you know, what I was talking about earlier with the circle drive, getting traffic off the street. We don't want people bunching up and really creating a big bottleneck on Jason. One other big thing that we want to emphasize is that the loading for both trash and deliveries, we plan on putting it up here off the street as well and just to the north of the property. That way we don't have Amazon trucks, FedEx trucks, garbage trucks stopped on Jason causing a bunch of issues. So we wanted to make sure that we keep Jason flowing as easily and as well as possible. And so we think that this way, this proposal here does a really great job of addressing those traffic concerns. So to talk about the number of parking spaces, I know I said that we have 444 spaces, but what does that really mean? So typically when we look at how much parking we're providing, we look at it in terms of a parking ratio. That is the number of spaces divided by the number of units in the apartment building. So over here on the right and to this table, we have the number of spaces provided by a bunch of other buildings that you all may already be familiar with within Englewood. Our closest one is Oxford Station and Art Walk at City Center, which are just north of Hamden. And as you can see, Oxford Station doesn't even provide one space per apartment. Art Walk does quite a bit better, but we plan on providing even more parking than Art Walk at City Center, because we know that there's a lot of neighbors that have concerns about residents parking out in the neighborhood, taking up spaces, really causing issues there. And so we want to make sure that we are well over parked and providing more parking than other buildings, just to make sure that that doesn't become an issue. Another thing that we've also discussed and that we're really heavily exploring and what we'd like to do is making sure that we include a clause in the lease that says that they are not allowed to park on the street, to make sure that the building can park itself and that we're not using community parking spaces for our own building. So that was something that was really, really important to us that we did. And I think that this chart really shows here that I think that, you know, at 1.47 spaces per unit, we'll safely be able to house all of our residents without using any sort of on-street parking whatsoever. So to talk a little bit about some of the economic and community benefits for our project, this slide here just gives a very quick high-level summary. We anticipate that this project on an untrended basis, so this is in today's dollars, because clearly it'll take a few years to build the building, but in today's dollars, we anticipate that this building will produce at least $450,000 a year in annual property tax revenue, of which $300,000 of that will go directly towards Englewood School District 1. So that's really great. You know, we're really happy to be able to provide more support towards schools. And one thing, you know, when we went and did our tenant demographic study, we kind of really determined that we don't think that we're going to have a lot of families who would have children who would be using a lot of the schools. We'll probably have some, absolutely, but it's not like, you know, of the 400 new residents we're anticipating on having, that we're going to have, that 100 of those are going to be kids. So I think we really will only have probably a handful of families with children. So we're going to be providing $300,000 in school support, even though we're not going to be really using, you know, too much school resources by overcrowding the schools. So we think that that's something that's really great, and we really want to be able to support Englewood schools. You know, we're going to be hiring 300 plus probably temporary construction workers over a 2-year period while the building is built. So those would be all local to Metro Denver. And then once the building is built, the building is going to employ at least 10 people just to manage the building and do maintenance and work on leasing. And so we want to be able to have a small jobs presence as well, even after the building is constructed. Like I said, also, yeah, we anticipate that about 400 people could potentially be living in this building. So that's 400 new people that are spending their money in the community and really helping local businesses. And we really want to help Englewood grow responsibly here. And then a couple of other just big fees that we're going to be paying, fees and use taxes. So about $3.2 million will be paid towards Englewood in the form of use taxes and fees. So a lot of that you can think of as, you know, the sales tax and the construction materials. And so, you know, we'd love to be able to give Englewood $3.2 million there. We also, to Arapahoe County and to the state, we anticipate another almost $2 million in fees. And we also be contributing about $450,000 towards the RTD to help support transit. And the last would be, and this is over and above what's required, we wanted to be able to make sure that we were able to help contribute to that rail trail, because we think it's going to be a really great tool and a really great way to enhance the pedestrian experience and to enhance connectivity of, you know, to the rail station to the north, and to kind of take away some of the hard pedestrian experience along Hamden. So we anticipate that we're going to be contributing at least $300,000 towards both the rail trail and some other traffic improvements to try to improve some of the traffic situation on nearby streets as well. So here's just one other quick elevation of the building. We really wanted it to fit into the context of the neighborhood, like Kevin was saying. And so we have a lot of brick on the, or that kind of, you know, nice sandstone there, with some stucco as well with the wood. And, you know, we think that this is going to be something that, you know, provides a really nice, pleasant experience from going by, and nice big windows. And we really want it to enhance the street much more so than the parking lot that's there today. So now getting into the Q&A section, I guess I will go fast. I'm going to move forward just real fast. So before we get into questions, just wanted to let you guys know that, we could really use any sort of community support that you all would be able to provide. And Dustin went over this originally, but I also wanted to show you guys here in a written form, contacting any sort of planning commission members, which you can find on the website. And I'm happy to, reach out to, if you guys reach out to me directly, my email's down here below in the lower right-hand corner. Help you get in touch with planning commission members and city council members, just to send them either emails, letters, or phone calls, just to let them know that you would support, bringing this nice building that could really enhance the community. Let other fellow businesses know about it, and we're happy to coordinate with anyone on letting them know how they can support the project. And then the best way would be if we would be able to get anyone who'd be willing to come and via Zoom, most likely, come to one of our either planning commission or city council meetings, just to be able to vocally support the building, because we found that really makes a big difference with them. And so if you would like to get any information on how you can help, you can contact either Phil Workman, who's been helping to run the Zoom here, or you can contact me, and these are our email addresses below. And I'll go back to the screen in a little bit, but so that kind of concludes the formal part of the presentation. And